What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy show with me, your host, Tara Roberts. This is the official mailbag show for Player Profiler. It is Wednesday, October 1st. We're in October. My God, it's fall. It doesn't feel like fall here in Houston because it's still like 90 degrees during the day. I check the weather app every single morning to see like when is 80-degree weather coming because it's like a pipe dream of mine just to eventually get there. And every single week, it's like, oh, 80-degree weather will be here in 3 days. And then every single week, 3 days never comes and it just keeps pushing back. So pray for me here because it is hot. But that's okay. I've got a fan. We're inside. We'll live for now. But today's topic is going to be buy low trades. I feel like I'm making trades maybe a regular thing for the show. It just makes a lot of sense for us. And that's always a good mailbag question. We're going to do mailbag live questions. Your comments are going to be the mailbag questions because I'm not going to lie here. It has been a chaotic week with all of these injuries and stuff. And like, I definitely whiffed on sending out my tweet that asked for mailbag questions. Whoops. It's just been chaotic, right? Every single time we turn around, there's new injuries over and over and over again. It's just ridiculous here. I was hit hard by the Malik Neighbors and Tyreek Hill super whammy combination there. It was painful. My Scott Fishbowl has just injuries week after week. I'm at this point, I'm making it my personal goal to make the playoffs. Winning that tournament is not physically possible, but hey, we're gonna make do. Also lost Lamar in that league as well, so it's just a massive injury fest here. But we will push through. We've got, injuries all across the board. I could run down them all. Let's just talk about them as we answer, because my God, when we're hit with like Trey Benson, and then we're hit with Bucky Irving, and then we knew both the 49ers receivers were coming, but like, it's been chaotic and rather unfair to everyone from a fantasy perspective. So hopefully we can pull things together. And why did it all have to happen? Let me make sure my phone is muted. Why did it all have to happen, unfortunately, during the first bye weeks here? Ridiculous, right? Okay, so let's jump in. Let me check out the comments here. I'm getting text messages like crazy. Jesus. Jump to the comics and say hello to you guys here. If I can get my internet not to lag here, it's not going to let me. Okay, all right. Let's jump in here into the comments. What is up, Jerry Nelson? Sorry, we're just lagging here with the internet for some reason. For what's up, Emil? What's up, Anthony? Hi, Johansson. Hi, Jeff Rogers. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Megan. What's good? I hope you all are fantastic. Let's dive into the questions. And of course, we're going to talk about buy low trade options as well. And this is a perfect opportunity here right off the bat. Thank you, Emil. Who would you sell Alvin Kamara for? And Alvin is a frustrating one, right? It can kind of go two ways. For me, he's technically a buy low right now, but the thing is that there's a market to both sell and buy him right now. He's not in one of those dire situations where it is let's say a Calvin Ridley situation, right? Where you can't sell Calvin Ridley because absolutely no one is buying him. The market straight up does not exist. But when we're looking at Alvin Kamara, we still, hold on there. Messed something up there on my screen. All right. When we're looking at Alvin Kamara, we still have relatively good opportunities for him. My main thing with Alvin Kamara is that we have a strong possibility, I believe, of the fact that he is a real life trade candidate in the NFL, right? It's very possible that we could see him be traded off to an actual contender, because when we look at New Orleans, they're on a fast track to nowhere, and they know that. That's kind of the expectation that they probably had coming into the season, that this was a rebuilding season for their first-year head coach, Kellen Moore. This was not a competing season here. We're seeing more and more introductions of Kendre Miller. So as we're seeing this and we're starting to get the feeling that he is a very solid trade candidate, that opens up the door for, if you want to sell him and you just don't want to deal with it, because let's say that maybe you are 1-3, 2-2, you need a push, God forbid, 0-4, and he's not contributing to you actually winning games, and you want to sell him off to somebody who can maybe use him down the line when he gets traded, because the value of holding on to him for a trade opportunity is awesome, but the trade deadline, we're a little bit of ways away from that, right? And if you need somebody right now, trading him is very critical right there. So when you're looking at his value, he is kind of coming in at like a low end RB2 value in that kind of sketchy area of, not sketchy, I like Chuba Hubbard, but in that, area of guys like Chuba Hubbard, Cam Scatterbo, Jordan Mason. So if you're looking to upgrade at running back, you're going to have to pair him up with a wide receiver. Perhaps you pair him up with a solid, promising wide receiver in order to upgrade, and maybe potentially look at guys like Derrick Henry, maybe Devon Achane's not a buy low, but obviously we've talked about Ollie Gordon a lot. I think there's a lot of speculation from some fantasy managers that Ollie Gordon will take over at some point. I don't believe that's the case, but a lot of people have skepticism around that offense as a whole, Tua, Ollie Gordon being there. So Achane is actually a fairly good value for the fact that he is a legitimate, extremely high upside player. So when you're looking at selling Alvin Kamara, I would pair him up with a receiver just to kind of sweeten the deal there, so you can get a little extra bang for your buck there. And then, of course, if you were doing flip maybe to a wide receiver, of course, I am very partial to guys like, and Travis Etienne is another one that I think is very interesting. Etienne's trade value is not that different from Alvin Kamara, so you wouldn't have to adjust much in terms of additional assets. So that's actually another one. But in terms of wide receivers, guys like Michael Pittman, who I think are strong wide receiver twos, but have legitimate wide receiver upside, are also very good comps to do maybe a 1-for-1 trade on him. From Anthony, man, my computer is going slow here. That's not cool. I think I have way too many windows open or something here. Trying to show your comment. There we go. Anthony Jones. Should I drop Trey Benson with 3 bench spots? Oh, yeah, with 3 bench spots, yeah. So as long as you have the depth to keep him in terms of bench spots, maybe IR spots, I mean, we've got 4 weeks now. It was weird how we got 4 weeks very quickly here. We were told that the knee injury was not that big of an issue. So for us to get that like sudden switch there was very intriguing. But I think that dropping him when you only in a league that doesn't have a ton of bench spots is very realistic there. When he returns, he will be the RB1. But if you're in a dire position where you can't hold on to him at that point, and 4 weeks is the minimum right here, I would like more of a timeline from Arizona. The fact that we don't have more of a I feel like we need more definitive information on him to feel a little bit more comfortable there. So if that's okay for you, Anthony. For anybody else, I would say no. I'm jealous of you, Johansson. It is no, you said 60 in rain, like in PNW. Well, yeah, I get it, but like the only time we can touch 60 here in Houston is the morning right now for about like 5 minutes. It'll be like 68 degrees, and then like the sun comes up. And unfortunately, it's not a fantastic situation. I love fall. I'm ready for fall. I have a fall aesthetic. That's my happy place there. Jerry Nelson, yeah, too many running back injuries. It's rough. If you have been untouched by the running back injuries, yay, right? But on the flip side, we are getting our handcuff situations. So this is why, like when I do my stash videos that I put out on Saturday morning for waiver wire stashes, I will always tell you, look, hey, these are the handcuffs that we want to prioritize holding. Because if you have bench spots, and because someone asked a comment, like, what's the point of, stashing players? early, saying that that would be a sign or an indication that you have a bad team. That's not the case. We all know the guys on our rosters that are on bench that can come and go, right? We look at them and we say, probably on Tuesday, if they don't go off this weekend, if nothing happens, I'm probably going to drop this person in order to put a waiver claim in for somebody else. So all we're doing is preemptively grabbing. So with handcuffs, a lot of times, if you have the ability, I like to do a preemptive grab, especially for those that are coming on strong. So that was Woody Marks last week. He was my number one, like, hey, like we're grabbing and we're stashing Woody Marks because of the extreme upside and opportunity that he has there. And that situation obviously worked out fantastic for us. So again, like when it comes to these injuries, we need to be, stashing players just in case. Particularly running backs, prioritizing them. I will always have running backs over guys like Ayomanor, who is operating as a wide receiver one, but perhaps doesn't offer like a massive upside. You need to be swinging for upside on those benches if you can. Question from Jeff Rogers. Picked up DeMercado. Should I flex him over Mason? No, I would still go with Mason. DeMercado, so Arizona has said, so when I'm looking at the Arizona backs, I am pro DeMercado is the one that I am grabbing over everyone else, right? Because I know a lot of people are looking at Michael Carter, which is, a possibility that he could pop as well. They signed someone else off the top of my head. I'm forgetting it, but they said that all three running backs will get touches. They have no loyalty to anyone in particular. So while I do think that Amari DeMercado is the best bet, I would not flex him over Mason at this point. And Mason, obviously, when we're looking at him this week, not the most ideal matchup, right, in Cleveland. But at the very least, we do know that he has volume. I would expect this to be Cleveland's defense would probably hold them fairly close there and have it not be a massive runaway. So we should still get good competitive volume on the ground for Jordan Mason. So we're not at that point yet. Even in a bad matchup, I still want to lean towards Jordan Mason as more of a top 20 back. And Amari DeMercado is definitely more of a risky option. Even in full PPR, as you just said, even in full PPR. Because like Brandon J said, Michael Carter may be the starter over DeMercado. I think they said that they will lead with DeMercado, but that everybody would get touches. So it's one of those situations where it's just not 100% trustworthy right off the bat. Absolutely worth stashing both of them, Michael Carter and Amari DeMercado, but playing them right now, not so much, right? What's up, Megan? Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to you. From Shorty, would you trade Pickens / Kraft for Adams? Who would be a good receiver to target for that combination full PPR? I would aim higher. And I like so Davante Adams is a very safe top 20 wide receiver on a weekly basis. The targets that he is getting in the red zone, it's excellent, right? The usage is very clear. They love him there. The volume does aggressively favor Puka Nacua. So Davante is safe, right? But when we're looking at the combination of George Pickens and Tucker Kraft, you're talking about a guy from my perspective, because we're seeing Trey McBride has been his typical self, right? Not massive ceiling games, but then when we're looking at Brock Bowers, he's been having a lot of floor games here. Tucker Kraft is somebody who I think has a legitimate chance to finish as the overall tight end one, and I think a lot of people feel that way at this point, right? Him, Tyler Warren, there's options, right? And then we look at George Pickens. Selling high on him right now in anticipation of CeeDee Lamb coming back does make a lot of sense. But at the same time, you got to remember that even with CeeDee Lamb out there, he was still the one that was getting more of the touchdown opportunities. CeeDee Lamb was having volume, 10 plus targets, 100, yards. He's that type of receiver, but the touchdowns weren't there for him. The touchdowns were leaning towards George Pickens. So even when CeeDee Lamb comes back, George Pickens is still a high-end asset. So the combination of Pickens and Kraft should get you more than Davante Adams, in my opinion. I would probably aim for, I would aim for or if you want to do a buy on, man, I don't know, because Pickens is up there really high right now. Maybe I would try for like a Garrett Wilson is more the equivalent to that combination, because Pickens is like very, very high in value right now. And again, with Tucker Kraft there, yeah, you need to upgrade because the value of Pickens and Devontae Adams, quite frankly, they're literally dead even there. So adding in Kraft, yeah, you need to aim a little bit higher on that one, in my opinion. Let's see what's up to. Every time you know what, I have way too many things open. I'm just gonna have to close them all out at some point. What's up to Miami Martian? What's up to Blah M Knee? And Jerry Nelson question, what, I don't know which running back. List the running backs on that question for which running back that I would rather have. From Gwen P. Do I have wide receiver in RB rankings for this week? I do, yeah, and I'll post them to my YouTube channel. I did the quarterbacks because the top 12 quarterbacks right now are like super solidified. That stuff is not going to change for me. I had already moved Purdy out in anticipation that he wasn't going to be playing. The running backs felt like they were in a little bit of flex right now, so I was scared to post the running backs before we knew for sure on some of these other fringe guys. But I'll go ahead and post the wide receiver and running back rankings on my YouTube channel as well. Jeff Rogers, would I be able to sell Scary Terry right now? I think there's a market for it. Yeah, especially with Jaden Daniels coming back. So practice in full. We feel good about Jaden Daniels here. Even if we don't get Terry McLaurin back this week, they have been clear that it's not a long-term injury. So I think there's still a market there for him. Obviously, it's a lower market right now, but I think you can still sell him at this point. For Miami Marsh, especially to people who have winning records right now because they're looking to grab players like that they don't necessarily need right now, that could be more back half season pushers. Because again, with Terry McLaurin, the addition of Deebo Samuel is definitely a factor, right? But at the same time, we've seen Terry McLaurin start off slow, and then he is touchdown dependent. This is not a guy that thrives off of a ton of volume in terms of receptions. He's a deep threat, big throws, and we know that can be a little bit volatile sometimes. So I do still feel very comfortable with him having a bounce back as we get further into the season. One more question, and then we'll take a break here from Miami Martian. Am I crazy dropping Devontae Smith and Jordan Addison? I'm very wide receiver heavy, and the two teams that lost Tyreek and Neighbors don't want to trade. That's crazy. And I need to think about in the long run. Addison, I would not. Devontae, I am okay with that. If you have to move on and there are better options on waivers in terms of maybe running backs, right? And you're in more of a shallow league, I'm okay with moving on from Devontae Smith. Jordan Addison, I'm not, just because, again, we will at some point have JJ McCarthy coming back, and that does bring maybe a little bit more concern because Carson Wentz is not ultimately the more talented quarterback at this point in his career, but he is the more stable option. So it makes sense that the offense flowed much better with him. And the offense flowed much better with Jordan Addison in it. Like, regardless of who was at quarterback, the volume had just been not getting to Justin Jefferson the way that it should have been. The offense just functions so much better with Addison. And I think Addison is a strong one that we want to keep there. I feel very positively about him. But for Smith, if you need to do it, I'm fine with that. It's interesting that the ones that lost Tyreek and Neighbors don't want to trade. I can see Tyreek because, depending on the draft, you could have got him at good value there. But Neighbors, that one's intriguing. We'll do this one quick, and then we will go on to, we'll do a little quick break there. Brandon J, is Kendre Miller a better handcuff than Ollie Gordon? I still have Ollie higher just because ultimately, apples to apples, if they were to both end up being starters, Ollie Gordon's ceiling would be so much higher than his just because of the Miami offense being overall that much better. But Miller would be right behind him, really. So yeah, Miller's rising up a lot, but for me, he has not surpassed Gordon. Yeah, it's close though, but I still have Gordon there. But before I get to the other questions, and guys, keep dropping your questions because we're running down all of the questions here in this show, especially because you're asking good trade questions. And the theme for this show is, in fact, trades. But before we do that, I am going to, we're going to have like a quick little word from our sponsors here. And I will be right back after you hear from the Podfather.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with SuperFlex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide, $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
And we are back here, guys. Again, we will be going down the list of comments. So if you have any comments, be sure to drop them. And if you're interested in any of the Player Profiler package, you can use my promo code. It is just Tara, T-E-R-A. Very simple there. Very nice and simple. Jumping back to the questions here. I think I got, let me scroll back because I think, there we are. We were at Johansson's question here. Daniel Jones or Jackson Dart rest of season? It's Daniel Jones for me, for sure. I trust it at this point. I know a lot of people, especially maybe after last week where we did finally see like a little chink in the armor, might be feeling that way about Daniel Jones. But for me, he still remains a potential QB1 rest of season, will be a weekly streaming option. I've got him as a top 12 quarterback this week. With Dart, we just got to be careful because obviously there's two ways that it can play out. One, we often see these rookies come into these situations and just ball out of control. We've like in recent seasons, Bo Nix, in his situation wasn't as dire, but there was no run game to speak of, right? The wide receiver was exclusively Cortland Sutton, which is an excellent wide receiver one to have, but not the most perfect situation to come in to. They had obviously had a little higher end pick for the reason of their defense was carrying them and the offense was a major issue there, but came in to a good situation, turned it around in a bad situation. Jaden Daniels, bad situation, turned it around here. So Jackson Dart can thrive in this situation. And really, when we look at the Giants, I will say this, I can see the improvement in their defense. You can see Abdul Carter starting to make a bigger impact. The offensive line is still questionable, but we're seeing a little bit of improvement there. So rest of season, I do love Jackson Dart as a streaming option on a weekly basis. For me, he's basically, and I've said this before, he's basically 2024 Drake May, right? He unfortunately has no wide receiver one now that we were robbed. Ultimately, my dream there in New York was hoping that they would make Dart sit the full year and we would get Jameis Winston to Malik Neighbors because it would have produced like legitimately, like, I don't know, a solid 30 touchdowns. that was the pipe dream right there. But Jackson Dart, regardless, he no wide receiver one, questionable offensive line, and then questionable defense as well, but rushing upside. So from a fantasy perspective, that's my little comp there of like he's 2024's or 2025's version of 2024 Drake May. There going to be a weekly streaming option. Sometimes it might not look pretty and might not have a ton of volume there, but he's got the rushing upside to carry through for sure. From Shorty, how do you feel about trading for players that are down, like Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and Brian Thomas? Do you envision any of them turning their season around? Or is it probably that what we're seeing is what we're going to get? So I have a different answer for each one of those guys. I'll start off with Derrick Henry because that is the one that I am very positive about. So the thing about Derrick Henry is that we know, so first of all, the Ravens situation is dire. I'm not going to lie on that one. I'm worried about them as a team, especially now that we have Lamar Jackson out potentially multiple weeks here with that hamstring injury. You can point out there's a bye week coming soon, so it makes logical sense that they would hold him after the bye week. But the thing about Derrick Henry is that we know that when the Ravens are up, when they're in a good game, when they're in a competitive game, Derrick Henry is going to thrive. That's what we saw in week one. They jumped up on Buffalo. It ended up being a competitive game. Derrick Henry had a massive game, right? Makes sense. When this game script is not favorable, Derrick Henry has, subpar games where he's not playing a ton of snaps, where he's not getting a ton of carries. And then you see Justice Hill come out. So yeah, there are games where we're going to see 10 fantasy point, 8, 7, 8, 10 fantasy point Derrick Henry. It is what it is. But when you look at the schedule, things are going to lighten up after the bye week, right? So right now, again, it could be ugly over the next couple of weeks. So if you're buying on him, just be aware of that. They've got Houston and the LA Rams and then the bye week. But after that, they've got teams like Chicago, Miami. Then their playoff schedule is beautiful with Cincinnati, New England, and Green Bay. Legitimately, if you can buy low on Derrick Henry and you make the playoffs, that is a league winning move right there. So he is absolutely legitimately one of my favorite buy low candidates right now. Just because, again, the perception is down, the offense is down, the defense is horrible, right? But as we get further in the season, some of those matchups, a lot of those matchups are very, very favorable. So that back half season schedule for him is money. Excellent buy low opportunity. AJ Brown, I do not feel the same way. And I hate that. When I say, it's funny. I do a weekly video with Fantasy Pros of 5 moves to make. And I had one of my moves off of AJ Brown's big game. So prior to last week was, off of week 3 was, hey, sell AJ Brown right now, sell high, get out. And someone commented so every player is a sell high. Not every player is a sell high, but when the player is in a situation where we factually know they do not want to be pass heavy. We know that about the Eagles. They want to lean on the ground game. They will pass when they are forced to. The LA Rams, that matchup, they stopped Saquon Barkley and they literally forced the Eagles to acquiesce and pass. And when they do that, they succeed because Jalen Hurts, he is a very good quarterback. He can pass. I don't know why everybody thinks he can't pass. They just simply choose to limit his volume. That's not his fault. That's how the Eagles want to operate. That's how they won the Super Bowl. We can't argue with it. It works for them. It doesn't work for us from a fantasy perspective because we know that unless they are forced to, they're not throwing the ball to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. AJ can be frustrated all he wants and upset reading his books on the sideline, but they're not going to acquiesce and they're not going to trade him because why would they do that? So it is what it is, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't like, unfortunately, buying on AJ Brown because it's a very cut and dry situation. You can play him in matchups where teams force Philadelphia to run. And in other situations, you cannot rely on him to have volume. And the difference there between the situation that we were talking about with Derrick Henry is that he has matchups coming that favor him having high volume. A lot of games in the back half are very pro run friendly for Derrick Henry. AJ Brown, the Eagles are so good that they can simply rely on the run and they're not going to have to pass. It's just a different situation. And on a weekly basis, you don't want to have to deal with it. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. is an intriguing one. Brian Thomas Jr. Has reached a point where he has such low value that he is a good buy right now. We have to be kind of fluid in fantasy football. It flips back and forth here, but the value has dipped so low on him that I think he's worth a buy. Trevor Lawrence, I need him to be better, right? The accuracy is still an issue. He looked a little bit better last week. Ultimately, I kind of feel like they're going to rely on the ground game because they're excellent on the ground. But what I will say is that the struggles that Brian Thomas Jr. is having do not appear to be tied to Trevor Lawrence. So don't take it as if it's Trevor can't provide him with accurate balls or good balls. And so BTJ is struggling. Nah, when you look at it, BTJ is making mistakes that are all on his own, right? Drops, those are his fault. Failing to get 2 feet down when you got a solid 3 feet of real estate to get them down, that's your fault, man. There's just something going on. I think it's just a mental thing, right? We saw it with Marvin Harrison Jr. Mid-game. once you get like, I think like, I don't know. I asked like, can you consider wide receivers getting yips? Because that's kind of what it feels like is what's happening with Brian Thomas Jr. He's too talented to not buy low on him. And the fact that we don't have anyone coming to steal his job, like if you're looking at a Lad McConkey, that's a situation where unfortunately he has too many people competing with him, right? And they are succeeding over him. But when you're looking at Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter has not been fantastic, right? And we saw him last week in a situation where he played the majority of offensive snaps. And at the end of the day, it still was not extremely impactful production. Then you got De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington. Like it's just Brent Strange. Brian Thomas Jr. is the first look in that offense. That's what we care about here. So he is still a good buy low opportunity. And the offense does at least flow well. And credit where credit is due. Jags are winning games and succeeding. It is what it is. So yeah, I think we're in a buy situation with him. From Miami Martian, I still have AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, QJ, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, and Rice after dropping those two. Yeah, you're fine. I think that's perfectly fine on your earlier question there about dropping Devontae. Devontae is the one of that group that I would drop. And then honestly, between, and it sucks that you don't have anyone to trade a guy like AJ Brown off to. But yeah, if you have to with Addison, it's just that I feel like, between Addison and Keenan Allen, very, very similar. But the difference there between the two is that Keenan Allen is an older wide receiver. So I'm kind of be inclined to drop Keenan Allen over Jordan Addison just because of Keenan Allen's age, and the risk of him not making it through the season is just higher than Jordan Addison. And they're very much so on par for me. From Easy E, what's up? I think I should flex Olave over Tet this week. I would still go with Tet, just because Tet in a bad day is still relatively similar to Olave. I actually am writing an article of riskiest plays and safest plays, and Olave is the one that I'm listing is one of the guys that I'm listing as one of the safest plays this week. The reason for that is because with Olave and PPR, you can get 10 fantasy points. Like he's been very consistent on that. There's no ceiling there. So Olave can get you a solid 10, but I still prefer Tet over Olave for the fact that we can get a nice little ceiling play for him at the very least. JP1C fail, struggling in SuperFlex. How would you rank these quarterbacks? Dylan Gabriel, Mac Jones, Cooper Rush. So because of the matchup, if we're talking about this week in particular, right? Because of the matchup, I've got problems with Dylan Gabriel. And again, you got problems with the Browns in general, aside from Quinshon Judkins. He's the only person who I feel super comfortable with oddly enough, in the Browns offense. But when I'm looking at Dylan Gabriel in this matchup, I don't love it. Minnesota's defense, this is just a foul situation to start him in. I feel like you could have started him next week. Like I get it, moving on from Flacco was needed. But man, you could have started him next week in a much more favorable matchup rather than sending him over to the UK to start against a Minnesota defense that is going to blitz him out of his mind. That's what they're going to do. They're going to blitz and stunt and just mess with his head because he's a rookie. And that's the best way that they can attack him make mistakes. And if I know one thing about Minnesota's defense, that's exactly what they're going to do. So I feel bad for him for that reason. I think we could be in line for a lot of turnovers. If he does good in this game, more power to him, right? But I just don't think initially that I'm leaning into him being a strong play this week. Mac Jones is my preferred option there. Mac Jones, stable, right? You could go with Cooper Rush just because of all of the assets that he has there in Baltimore and the fact that they will probably be chasing points. But my preference there is for Mac Jones. I think he gives you the nice stable floor with some additional upside. Having no wide receivers is not cool, but I will say this, he can still get two passing touchdowns very easy, specifically to Christian McCaffrey. Big Christian McCaffrey week. Good God. The man might see 15 targets. Yeah. Little DFS. Like it's going to be like, if you play DFS, we're probably going to have like 50% at least ownership on Christian McCaffrey this week. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And you know what? For what it's worth, I do think their receiving core can at least be mildly usable there with at least they're veterans, right? That do pop up and be somewhat reliable when called upon. Demarcus Robinson in particular. And then Kendrick Bourne did look a little bit better as the game went on there. Fantastic. Rest of season. Who do you prefer getting? For rest of season, who would you prefer? Why can't I read? Let me slow down. For rest of season, would you prefer Franklin getting about the most targets with Sutton in a proficient offense or Ayomanor getting most targets in that offense? Good question there. I lean towards Ayomanor just because the potential, at least so with Franklin, safe on a weekly basis, although I will say volume can flip on a weekly basis between him and Marvin Mims. I think they're very interchangeable. So we could have, 10 fantasy point days from Franklin and then 4 fantasy point days from him. But regardless, very, very even there between the two. But at least with Ayomanor, who I do I am feeling comfortable enough to say he is the wide receiver 1 in that offense over Calvin Ridley. And that's crazy to say that a rookie overtook his job like that. But I fear that we did, in fact, reach maybe the 30-year-old hill with him. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, because when I look at Calvin Ridley, I've said this like 5,000 times. When I look at Calvin Ridley, I don't see a 30-year-old receiver because he was an old rookie and he has only played 5 full seasons. That's it, which is crazy at 30 years old. But he had an injury and then he had the suspension for gambling. So you would think wear and tear wouldn't be that much on him, but perhaps we reached that point. I do think Ayomanor is the wide receiver 1 of that offense. And at least we have the prospect of Cam Ward potentially getting better as they progress into easier matchups, right? They're going to be matchups that are more favorable. Even a team like Houston that is struggling, that's still a strong defense. So he's not been getting very good matchups here. It's been a rough start to the season for him, unfortunately. There will be a little bit of reprieve as he continues on there. And if he can push just a little bit more volume, we can at least get more opportunities for Ayomanor. So my preference there is Ayomanor. Aim for the potential upside there rather than the safer option for Franklin. What's up? Shout out to Albert. Thank you for tuning in. From Antonio, start Tonjes or Strange in PPR. I lean towards Strange. Again, with the receivers all being out, we could get increased volume to Tonjes. I don't know that I trust it. I do at least trust there's a certain level of volume to Strange. So Strange is my preference there. From Henry Odom, full PPR, 2 RB2, 1 flex, Mason, Chase Brown, Walker, Olave, Harrison Jr. That one is Mason, Walker, and Marvin Harrison Jr. for me, for sure. And then from Antonio Lopez, would you do Amarian and Worthy for Taylor and Wandale? Ooh, I don't, man, Amarian has looked really good. I think I might do that. We do have Rashee Rice coming back, and I think Worthy will still be fine, right? But the difference between, and Amarian has been fantastic, right? But the difference between Amarian Hampton and Jonathan Taylor is playing on another level right now. The fact that he has given us multiple overall RB1 weeks, and is a strong candidate for an RB1 overall finish this week, if not for the fact that, Christian McCaffrey is probably going to get 5,000 targets. Yeah, man, I think I'm okay with that. I think I am. Mm-hmm. Especially because in PPR, Wandale can be a volume merchant there, cheat code. So yeah, I lean that direction. From Megan, I am number two. Sorry if you guys can hear my dog. He's being very rude right now. I am number 2 on waivers tomorrow and have to drop Benson. And if I don't get marks, no IR spots. Who is your next RB target? Have to play Ayomanor with CeeDee Lamb, Pearsall, and London, either out or on a bye. And so would you drop Elliott for one of the New York Giants receivers? So you have to drop Benson, right? Is what you're saying. No IR spots, and you're trying to get marks. My next RB target would be if you need a usable asset, and you do because you're losing Benson. If you need a usable asset, I do think that I would lean towards Amari DiMercado. And then after that, for a usable asset immediately, I would probably lean towards Kendre Miller, maybe. But I think if you don't get Marks, DiMercado is the one that I would lean towards. Shoot, and you have number 2 waivers. And then for drop Ellick for one of the New York wide receivers, yeah, I'm okay with that. Again, long term, Ellick has opportunities there, but your upside right now is definitely going to be with Wandale. So I would drop Ellick for Wandale for sure. Let's do another question here. From Parker. Thoughts on selling Debo, Kenneth Walker, and Sharp for Garrett Wilson, Harvey, Woody Mark? Oh, I like that a lot. I'm not even gonna, yeah. For Wilson, RJ Harvey, and Woody Marks, I love that. I really do. Yeah, you're getting multiple usable assets there. Harvey having a good game is awesome, but it's even less about Harvey and more about the opportunity for Woody Marks and the fact that for Garrett Wilson, to me, he's a 100% a top 10 wide receiver rest of season. And my heart wants to make him a top 5 wide receiver rest of season here. I feel so positively about Garrett Wilson. I really do. This is going to be a fantastic year for him. Cross our fingers that everything stays good with health wise. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback for him. He is Garrett Wilson, and the volume has just been so extreme for him. From Easy E, thanks for everything. Bijan and Jacobs are on a bye, so I'm starting JK and Marks. Your thoughts? Yeah, I'm okay with starting. So JK, so for some reason, I feel like people were upset about JK because he didn't get the touchdown last week, which I was a little bit frustrated about because I did have him recommended for an anytime touchdown. So him not getting the touchdown and everybody else and their mother getting a rushing touchdown was very, very frustrating. Everybody else, I mean, there were rushing touchdowns galore and none for J.K. Dobbins. But he still had over 100 yards here. Harvey had a fantastic game, but volume is still aggressively favoring J.K. So I'm still comfortable with J.K. as an RB2. And then Woody Marks, I am comfortable as a low-end RB2 right now. So I'm 100% on board with starting Woody Marks. I wish the Texans would just flat out say, hey, he's our RB1, but they're not going to say that. Their quote was that they're excited to see what he can do with more touches. Okay, well, we know that. We know he's getting more touches, but I want you to tell us, man, that he's your dude and Nick Chubb is of the past. But we're not getting that, are we? From Cameron Bass. Dropped Njoku for Theo Johnson, and I'm fine with that. Although I will say I mildly wonder if Njoku is an interesting trade target just because of one contract and them, having the ability to move on to Harold Fannin Jr., get something out of Njoku kind of makes sense. But I'm fine with that. And then with Neighbors down, yeah, I figured his stock would go up. Yeah. And the thing that I will say is that Russell Wilson has never been somebody who's given us like a prolific wide tight end season, right? For some reason. Well, we know he loves his moon ball and whatnot, and he's just not one that leans in aggressively to tight ends. I liked Theo Johnson heading into the season, and Jackson Dart could favor him definitely more than Russell Wilson for sure. So Theo Johnson opportunities and stocks up for sure. Antonio Lopez, would you do Amari? Yeah, we did that one. Let's see here from Bronson. I like your name, Bronson. Trade Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, and Devontae Adams for Amon-Ra, Rasheed Rice, and Kenneth Walker. That's a big trade. Yes, I would do that. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'm less scared for, and again, Derrick Henry is a buy for me, but I don't mind selling him if you have the opportunity to make a deal like this. Kenneth Walker, the presence of Zach Charbonnet is frustrating, but at the end of the day, he's still the RB1 there. Volume still favors him. And I don't think it'll be a 100% they get to the goal line and they pull Kenneth Walker. That I just think we've gotten into a couple of opportunities where Sharp has been on the field, right? For that opportunity. I think there was one run where Kenneth Walker broke off a long run and then they took him out after the long run, which is normal to do, right? And so the goal line or red zone opportunity went to Zach Charbonnet. So some of it is just circumstance, right? Ayomanor ROS is one of the most trustworthy wide receiver ones. And then I do think the upside for Rashee Rice is high when he returns there. Especially even for both him and Worthy, to be quite frank. Just because when we look at that offense, I do not believe that Travis Kelce is going to play a major role moving forward there, right? From Henry Odom, I got Bill, Brashard Smith, Isiah Davis. Who should I drop to get Tuten off waivers? Logic says it does have to be Brashard, but I hate that because we do have a known increased role for him, right? But at the same time, can he fully take over that backfield? Now in PPR, he has upside because he's the favor in turn, or is the favorite in terms of pass catching upside, right? He's a converted receiver. And that seems where they are inclined to use him. I think maybe I would lean towards Isiah Davis as the one that I would be dropping there. There's something about Brashard Smith besides the fact that I do love him. I was going through my videos from when I was making content on Senior Bowl, and I found a little Brashard Smith clip that I'm saving for when he goes off because I was there. I was there back in the trenches for him. but yeah, I feel positively about the potential there for Brashard Smith. Bill, I don't feel super positive about just because they're so committed to being a committee there in Washington, but he has looked fantastic. So it's possible that he can just bully. I mean, Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols are not anything special. So it's possible that he can just earn trust and bully his way, bully them out and bully his way into the lead back role. So I do lean towards keeping Bill and Brashard Smith and then dropping Isiah Davis for Tuten. I think that's the way that I would go there on that one. But yeah, and then who would you trust more to keep, Bill or Rodriguez? Bill for sure. Again, the workload was split dead even between all of them, right? But besides, even split there, I think still the more effective back for sure was Bill. So I do lean that direction. Okay, where was I? I got lost on my comments here. Oh my gosh, let's do a rapid fire here because I realize we've got a ton of comments and I'm super behind on these. Okay, from Big Mando TV, if Bucky doesn't play, do I get White or DeMarcado? I would get White. That'd be my preference there. From Salty Calabash. Yeah, we'll do rapid fire here to try and wrap things up since I apparently am like 5,000 comments behind. Salty Calabash. What's up, everyone? Hope you're having a great night. I hope you're having a fantastic night, too. Greg Linux. Hi there. Should I keep starting Baker Mayfield or Drake May? I would want both of them rostered. For this week, I am starting Drake May. And I think I'm almost at the point of where I feel like I can trust Drake May rest of season. But it's tough to move on from Baker, right? Because he just is such a clutch player that always comes through with fantasy points for you. But May's production being consistently top 10 right here, I feel like something special is creeping through. I do have him higher this week in particular. So it's May that I lean towards on that one. From Hemi Odom, should I drop Keon Coleman for Washington? Yes, I'm okay with that. What we saw from Keon in week 1 was awesome. But again, it feels like it was more of the anomaly. And we're back to exactly where we were before, where nobody is productive in that offense. So, yeah, at least Washington, I do think. Mike McDaniel looks like he really likes Washington. He's been using him in very clever, gadgety ways. So if we can get more increased targets like downfield, I think there's really potential there for sure. Salty Calabash. I got offered a Dunze for Mason. I'm weak at RB. I do have Travion and Harvey, but they'll take time. I'm tempted to do it because I have Puka and Igbuka, and a Dunze would solidify your room. He would, but it's tough to rely on both Travion and Harvey. Honestly, if you have the ability to start, like, okay, so you're starting to Puka and Igbuka and Odunze, low key, you might have enough points at wide receiver to make up for the inconsistencies at running back. I kind of don't hate going bully at wide receiver. Like I have a dynasty team where I'll admit this, I've been starting Kenneth Gainwell for weeks from the get-go. I was starting Kenneth Gainwell because I don't have an RB2 and I don't want to trade for an RB2. But with I have Jonathan Taylor as my RB1, and then my wide receivers are so stacked that I've been winning. So it is what it is, right? Sometimes you might just not have, you'll have a weakness at a certain position, but you're so strong at others that it doesn't matter at all. Let's see here. Paul Gregory. I have offered Derrick Henry for Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I like that. You have Collins, Tet, Mike Evans, and then Kyron, Amarian, Genty, and Junket. Yeah, I would 110% do that trade for you. Quite frankly, I would give that person whatever running back they wanted for Garrett Wilson. That will do wonders for your lineup, and you are absolutely stacked at running back there. I like that. Yeah. Dart has a hell of an arm. No way he's 2025, Jaden Daniels. Dart has the apostle. He has a great arm, right? And he has rushing upside. Drake May is more of my super comp there for him, but week to week basis, he should have strong upside. From Miami Merchant, should I move on from McLaurin and get Addison back? I also have Odunze, forgot about him. Yeah. I don't mind that. I really don't. From Ezekiel Ruiz, should I trade DeMarcado for Addison? Yes. Yeah, if you can capitalize on that, for sure. If you grab any of those Arizona running backs, and if you can trade one of them now, for sure, or if one of them pops and then you want to trade them immediately, 100% capitalize on that. Kevin DeBoard, my roster is Allen, Gibbs, Chase Brown, Evans, Godwin, Kittle, Pearsall, Trey Benson, Rashad White, Michael Carter. Would you accept this trade? Jacobs and Amon-Ra for Gibbs and Godwin. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Upside is definitely higher for Gibbs, right? But my preference on that side for sure is preference for that is definitely Gibbs and Amon-Ra. I think that'll do more for you in the long run. From Easy E, someone tried to get Hampton in London for me for Lamb. And that would leave me with only Walker, Gibbs, and Jacobs as my RBs. I have QJ, McLaurin, Pearsall. He doesn't want anyone else but JSN. In PPR, I pass. Yeah, I think you need to stick with what you got there. Who has any depth to trade from? Certainly not I. From Henry Odom, should I trade Jefferson, Harrison Jr., Chase Brown for Hampton, Pickens, and Sutton? Man, you hate to part ways with Jefferson, but to upgrade to Hampton, I would absolutely do that. Yeah. Hampton has extreme upside rest of season, regardless of what their offensive line situation is. And at least at the very least, one of the offensive linemen that went down is a high ankle sprain and not a long-term thing. So, yeah, I'm okay with that. From Abreu, 68. May or Murray? I have May higher right now. And then Cleveland versus Minnesota or Rams versus San Francisco. I believe I have the Rams defense higher. Let me double check though on that for you. If my computer is running fast enough to where it can actually move, not at a glacial pace. Yeah, oh no, I've actually got interesting. I've got Cleveland one spot higher than the Rams. I would have thought that I would have had it the opposite there, but go with Cleveland. Let's see here. Tom, I want to trade for CD Lamb. CD Lamb is a really good buy low right now. I wish that, so we see that he's on the field. So that kind of hurts in terms of being able to buy too low on him. Wouldn't anticipate that he plays this week. Probably we still got one more week there, but seems like he's very close to returning here. So we feel good about that for sure. Want to trade for CD Lamb. I am willing to trade Keenan Allen, Brian Thomas, and Michael Pittman. Can you make a fair trade? I mean, I think if you paired up Brian Thomas with Michael Pittman, maybe you could get close there if someone is really hurting at wide receiver, but that's tough because it's clearly a step down on that one. From Abreu, need a wide receiver. Drop Benson for Judy, Ayomanor, Shaheed, or Slayton. We could in theory get an upgrade in terms of Grabriel long term as a quarterback solution there. I tend to lean towards going with Jerry Jeudy just because maybe we see the offense pick up a little bit. This matchup obviously is not ideal, but I lean towards Jerry Jeudy on that one. Thank you. Yes, JML Sports. Like and hype the video. Appreciate that. I always forget to ask people to like and share the video. That's always a flaw of mine in terms of reminding that. But yes, like the video if you were watching live. From Burkham, Strange or Theo Johnson in PPR. I have Strange higher right now. I think we've got opportunity for Theo Johnson, but Strange higher for right now. What's up, Kui Pie? From Jose Rodriguez, Ayomanor, McMillan, or Washington, or Shaheed. Pick two. I have London on a bye. McMillan for sure. And then between Washington and Ayomanor, I kind of lean towards taking that chance on Washington for the higher upside play over Ayomanor. And then Shaheed exists, right? But that's the direction that I lean here. Yeah, these Dennis, these injuries are just absolutely ridiculous. JML Sports, 4-0 team, nice. Was able to get my first trade off, rate my team. Kyler/Caleb, Hampton, Achan, Harvey, Javante, and then wide receivers, JSN, Ibuka, Worthy, London, Fergie with Rice, and Jennings on IR. I love that trade. That trade. I love that roster. I give you a solid A for that roster. Deep at every position and upside on the way with Rice. And how about Ferguson as a tight end? Nihal, Najer, Cardo or Carter. We're going with Amari. For right now, and the team has said everyone will get touches, but I do think, especially in PPR, our value there leans a little bit towards Amari DiMercado on that one. Gwen P, half PPR, would you drop Ayomanor for a tight end in case Bowers does not play? And then Fannin, Trimble, Theo, Okonkwo, and then no, I would not drop Ayomanor for any of those. Lean toward, so Bowers is dealing with any injury. He's playing through it. So don't get too worried about practice reports for him. It's going to be, questionable for him leading up to, and then he'll be cleared at the end of the week. So don't panic over that. So you're still good. And then for PPR, Slayton or Ayomanor, I'm okay with starting Slayton over Ayomanor this week. Again, with Ayomanor, he's got to get the touchdown in order to get those 10 points. And at least with Slayton, I do anticipate, especially in this matchup against New Orleans, I think Jackson Dart will be able to take advantage of it. So we should have good upside for both Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. Let's talk about from Shorty. Let's talk about Jamar Chase. Do we hold? He has been good at home against Detroit. Or if he's good game at home against Detroit, do we trade if we can? If so, what would be a realistic return? I mean, for everyone that watched the OL in prime time. Yeah. So Jamar is still a buy for me. If you got him, we're holding for right now. Again, I don't expect a good outcome in this game. I'm not going to lie. Now, what I will say, though, is that Detroit has been vulnerable to the pass. Wide receivers have done fairly well against them. So it's not a complete no-go for me. There is the possibility that he could have a better game here. So then that said, that after this, things do get softer. We'll get into better matchups here. So I'm still with Jamar Chase. I'm still holding on. Chase Brown, I'm selling and realizing there's no positive direction that we can go here, unfortunately. But with Chase Brown, yeah, that's a no-go. But with Jamar Chase, we're still holding on him. We're still holding. Individual, full PPR, trade Hall for Jacobs. I'm 3-1. They're 1-3. Yeah, and they're projected to lose with Jacobs on a bye. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that's very fair. Very fair. Fight Freak Clark, grade the trades in 4-point touchdown league. Lawrence for Ladd and Warren. Yeah. For Ladd. And then both Warrens. Lawrence for Ladd and Warrens, both the running back and tight end. Daniels and Andrews. I can't tell what the trade is exactly on that one. And you have Kyle Pitts. And I can't tell where the trade stops and ends. But if it's Lawrence for Ladd and Warren's, then yes. But Lawrence for Ladd or Lawrence for whatever, I think it's a fine trade. Trade away Lawrence for any of those combinations, to be quite frank. From Bob Hope, Sutton, Ibuka, Myers, Adams, PPR pick 2. It is Sutton and Ibuka. Hate to sit Adams. It's very close there with Adams, but yeah. From Bob Hope, this is crazy. Hurts or May? It's not crazy because Drake May has been a top 10 quarterback. He's been extremely reliable, so that's not crazy at all. I do still have Hurts higher, but the separation between the two is not that much. It's not that much. From John Davis, pick my flex, please. David Montgomery or Jameson Williams? I would go with David Montgomery. Jameson has been underwhelming. The past game has been, it's not that it's skipped him. It's just been, he's a big play guy. And when those big plays don't come through, it's underwhelming there. Montgomery is definitely the more stable option. From the Hall, is this a fleece? Egbuka and Alec for Nico. Nico manager has neighbors and Ricky and Juan and Kittle. Oh, yeah, it is. It is. I mean, honestly, it's fairly even for me, to be honest. I know, and that's because I do think there's a good possibility that Egbuka is the most productive wide receiver even when everybody is healthy. But to trade and get Nico, who is the solidified wide receiver 1, is a perfectly fine offer. So yeah, I think that's it's a good trade, but I don't know if it's a fleece. I think it's still fair to the other guy for sure. JML Sports, after week 4, who do you see finishing as QB1, RB1, wide receiver 1, and then overall tight end 1 this season? So tight end 1 is the easy one. For me, I do think it'll end up being either and Bowers can turn things around, but ultimately I think it's going to end up being either Tyler Warren or Tucker Kraft. Wide receiver 1 overall. That one is tough. I do think that we might end up with Puka Nacua. I think that Puka might pull it out there. dark horse is Garrett Wilson. I will say that if the touchdowns start pulling through. RB1, either CMC or Jonathan Taylor. With all of these injuries coming through, I think that CMC probably has the most solidified overall upside. And then QB1 for me, QB1 still Josh Allen on that. He's looked very, very not so Josh Allen-ish, but I still lean towards Josh Allen on that one. Nahal, Garrett Wilson, or Nico Collins rest of season. It is Garrett for me on that one. I'm pretty solidified on that one. I'm very high on Garrett Wilson. From Alec, in a tough spot, do I stick with it and put Woody Marks in as my RB2, or do I trade my flex, which is Ladd for Hall, and play Woody at flex? And I had Trey Benson at RB2. So I will say that I think trading Ladd for Hall is perfectly fine. If you can sell Ladd right now, just because, again, I think QJ is real and Keenan is Keenan, right? But Woody Mark says your RB2 is perfectly fine. I wouldn't panic over that. I do trust it at this point. And I don't hate the matchup as well. But I think that's also a fine trade. Can't believe Ladd is a bust in the second round. I feel like he was going to be the safest picks. Well, to be fair, I don't think that anybody anticipated that Quentin Johnston would have this level of a jump. I even roster him on a Dynasty team, and that thought never crossed my mind. Not a chance. I really did not think we would see this level of production from him. I think it's real because he has shown year over year that he is progressing in a very rapid, positive way. So I think he's just very prone to improvement, very coachable, working hard, and he's developed himself into a wide receiver one. That's crazy. I don't know that we saw that coming. Keenan Allen, yeah, we can make that assumption, but I don't think any of us saw QJ coming like that. Individual, 12-team full PPR, May/Lamar, Judkins, Hall, Taylor, Harvey, JSN, JJ, McMillan, Rice, Addison. Did I do it right? Or make Hall/Jacobs trade? I do like the Hall/Jacobs trade. I don't think you have to, but I think that's a good trade for you if you want to do it. So don't feel forced into it, but I do like that trade a lot for you. From Nihal, would you do Bijan and Worthy for Cook and JSN? I think it's even. Yeah, I'm okay with that. From Salty Calabash, should I trade Travis Hunter or give him time? This is or give him time, or give him not time. This is a Dynasty league. Give it time. I think it's too early to sell low on him. I do roster Kenneth Walker in a Dynasty, or sorry. I had a text message at the exact time. I'm ADD, people, and I can't see a text message and speak and read at the same time, so it threw me off, and I just said whatever name came out. Travis Hunter. I do roster Travis Hunter in a Dynasty league. I'm not panicking yet. It's not fun, right? But he's still a talented player, so at this point, we don't want to sell low on him right now. Thank you, Paul Gregory, for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Yeah, as you guys can see, I do tend to be a wee bit ADD. Miami Martian. Couldn't get Addison back because McLaurin is on my R spot, but I did flip Keenan Allen for Michael Pittman, good or bad. Yes, I prefer Michael Pittman rest of season to Keenan Allen. I'm very high on Michael Pittman. From Jamal. Am I crazy for starting Theo Johnson over Kelsey this week? You're not. Honestly, it's apples to apples right there. Kelsey has been incredibly underwhelming. Would I probably start Kelsey this week over him? Yeah. And I have Kelsey ranked over him this week. But Kelsey has fallen back, honestly, outside of my top 12. The upside doesn't exist. He is Travis Kelsey, so it could happen at any time, right? But ultimately, we're just not feeling very positive about him. From Poke Varsity, Nix, Henry, Dobbins, Puka, Waddle, Sutton, Laporta, Benches, Addison, Bucky, Myers, Ladd, Tucker, Waller, Franklin. What are some moves I can make due to Bucky going down? I think so. You got Henry and Dobbins. I think that you need to move Lad. I think that you need to move Lad. I'm still getting text messages. I need to put my phone on do not disturb, but then I don't want to do that because, like, I got a family. I don't want to be rude. Sell Lad or Myers. You need to sell one of those wide receivers. Lad is the one that I think, like, there are people looking to buy low on Lad. He's a buy low right now, so you can get good value out of him. Sell Lad for a running back. Again, you're fine, like, but you don't have the high upside play in Derrick Henry right now because we talked about Derrick Henry earlier. The good times are coming, but we got to get there, right? So selling for a wide receiver or selling for a running back right now is probably the most advantageous thing for you to do. But yeah. And you're 2 and 2 there. Yeah, I think selling. You could also maybe trick somebody into buying Waller. Keep that in mind. You might be able to trick somebody into buying Waller there. And then Addison could be a move for you as well, especially off of this game. He looked very, very solid. From back line, 4-0, but I have 3 wide receivers on a bye week. Who do I pick up to start? Tyquan Thornton, Luke McCaffrey, or Josh Palmer? I'm mildly intrigued by Luke McCaffrey. I'm not going to lie there. I'm probably not going to do it. You've got one more week, and it's specifically for a bye, so I would pick up Tyquan because at least I trust that one a little bit there. More than I do Luke McCaffrey, but I am mildly intrigued by McCaffrey. But Tyquan is the one that I would pick up because you just need it for this week. You're 4-0. You're just looking for a little something to get you by this week, and Tyquan can do that right now before Rashee Rice comes back. From Stephen View, 14 team, half PPR. Do you play Hawk or take the gamble on Tonjes? Waivers are thin. I would still play Hawk. I know it's frustrating, but I would still play Hawk. I'm starting Hawk in a league. I would start Hawk over Tonjes. And it's a 2 tight end league that I have him there. So yeah, I feel you on that with the thin waivers. Are we close to getting near the I think we're getting close. Fighting Freak Clark. Yeah, we are. We're catching up here. We're scooting because I got to wrap things up soon. Trade 1, Lawrence for Lad. Okay. We're back to your question. Good. Trade 1, Lawrence for Lad. And then trade 2 is Warrens, both of the Warrens, running back and tight end for Daniels and Andrew. I do like that trade, Lawrence for Lad for you. I like that. So that's yay. And then, I don't know how I feel about that. The Warrens for Daniels and Andrews, because Andrews is very touchdown dependent, right? Very situational. And I like Tyler Warren a lot. And Jaylen Warren has been very solid. Now, granted, we don't, he was dealing with the injury. We don't get him this week either. But man, again, when I talked about Tyler Warren, I think legitimately Tyler Warren can be the overall tight end 1 this year. So that second one is very even to me. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. The first one I do love. Personally, I low-key would rather stream at quarterback. Daniel's upgrade is massive, but I almost would low-key rather stream at running back than have to give up those 2. From Alec, and also with how thin people are at running back, your value for Jaylen Warren is a lot higher than that. Just keep that in mind. His value is higher, even on the bye week and injured with the injuries that are coming in at running back. Just keep that in mind. Alex 1-2, do I start Schultz or Laporta? I would still start Laporta. Salty Calabash, I have Laporta, Fannin, Taylor. Should I look to move Laporta since Detroit has so many mouths to feed? This is Dynasty. I would. And I think you can be very rest assured. One, it was good that we saw Mason Taylor come along, right? So positive future for it. And I've always felt really good about Mason Taylor. We just need to get that volume there. And then Fannin, I do believe that Fannin has a very good chance of being the solo starting tight end next year. Anticipated probably moving on from David Njoku. That's my assumption there. So I think you're fine. And selling Laporta makes a lot of sense for you. That's the one that I would sell out of that grouping for sure. From Earl, HU, PPR, McConkey, Harrison Jr., Pickens, pick 2. It's Harrison Jr. and Pickens. We can't trust McConkey right now, unfortunately. Tokyo Thrift. I love your name. I just dropped Olave for QJ. Yep, I'm perfectly fine with that. Should I drop Dobbins for a defense? Oh, you have Achan, Barkley, Kamara, Kenneth Walker, and Judkins. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, if you have to pick up a defense and between those running backs, you have to drop one, Dobbins would be the one. I'm okay with that. From Earl, HU, 12-man, PPR flex, Justice Hill, Isaiah Pacheco, or Malik Washington, pick one. It's close between Justice Hill and Malik Washington. Again, because matchup does kind of lean towards the fact that we should see more Justice Hill. Especially in PPR, man. But I think for you, I would probably play it a little bit safer and go with Malik Washington just in case the game is very close. For some reason, I don't know if it will be. I'm not anticipating it will be, but in the event that it is close and we get into a situation where we don't see Justice Hill, you'll be glad that you started Malik. So I probably would lean into Malik better. And then Gwen P, you're welcome. And should you keep holding Chase Brown and T. Higgins and just pray? I'm okay with holding T again, because at least I do believe there's volume on the way. But with Chase Brown, I'm sorry, we're SOL. And I say we too, because I roster Chase Brown in a league, and I'm very pro Chase Brown. And there was no way we could have seen this coming. Like, it's so unfair. Chase Brown was one of the safest running backs to draft in the early rounds because he had guaranteed workload. Nobody was competing with him. He was the clear RB1, and the pass catching upside from Joe Burrow is so extreme there. Joe loves to throw to Chase Brown. We were robbed. It's unfair. Chase was supposed to be our dude, our RB1, and we got robbed. So messed up. That one gets me more than anything. That one gets me more than anything because I have a special place in my heart for Chase Brown. That is a player that I drafted too, all but one of my dynasty teams. He was my late round darling, and him getting nuked is so frustrating. From Burka, start one in PPR, Amari DiMercado, Stephon Diggs, or Darren Waller. Stephon Diggs. We're seeing that, hey, look, they were ramping him up. We've seen a mild increase in snaps. We finally got him over 50% last week. Yay, we finally get targets. He looked good. They're just bringing him on slow here. And when we look at that, and I like Kayshon Boutte. I want it to be a thing, but it seems like they really are pushing forward with Stephon Diggs there. So Diggs is the one that I would start. Park Varsity, Ladd and Myers for JT. Absolutely, I would do that. For JT, for sure. From Gwen P, I have Lamar, picked up Jackson Dart, and had May on my bench. Which one would you play? I would play Drake May, for sure. Let's see here. From Steven, start one. Sharp, Harvey, Carter. I think I lean towards, we don't know if Harvey's production was a blip or not. I lean towards Sharp. Unless we get some kind of, unless and Sean Payton doesn't do these things, so it's a pipe dream. But if Sean Payton would come out and say, yeah, we're gonna integrate Harvey a little bit more, but he's not gonna do that. He doesn't do that. So thank you, Salty Calabash. I appreciate it here. And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you all joining for sure. From the Money Mark, in half PPR league, would you trade Devontae Smith? Yes, for whatever. Oh, wait, trade for Devontae Smith. You give up Charbonnet. No. You give up Charbonnet and Shakir. Well, Shakir is a non-factor for me, but I don't hate it. If you want to take a risk, because Charbonnet is literally just a handcuff, and then Shakir is a non-factor. I'm not mad at that if you want to take that chance. I don't feel comfortable starting Devontae Smith right now. That's the only issue. From Joseph, Marcusi? Pickens, ETN for Nico and Jalen Warren. I think that is a fairly even trade. I'm okay with both sides of that. Obviously, more pro ETN and then more pro Nico. So it's very balanced for me, to be honest. From G Medina, full team full PPR this week at wide receiver 2 to replace Terry McLaurin, Slayton, Ayomanor, Tucker, Franklin. Slayton. And then who would you be starting at running back? In Arizona, DeMarcado is the one that I would be starting. From Chime, half PPR 14 team, half PPR. I was offered Cup for Cup and JMO for Dobbs. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Particularly, Cup, whether or not he's consistent on a weekly basis, I don't know. I kind of feel like he's hit the age mark there. But obviously that person is trying to get like a little pep up because I like Romeo Dobbs, for the remainder of Jaden Reed being out. But Jameson is obviously my preferred wide receiver there, apples to apples regardless. So yeah, I like that. I like that. Tokyo Thrift. These are my defensive options. Minnesota, Cleveland, Rams, and Arizona. I would go with Minnesota. Minnesota is what I would lean towards. Would you drop Dart to pick up Waller? It depends on what you need. If you need the tight end, I'm okay with that. But we are getting very thin at quarterback, and streaming quarterbacks are kind of premium options. So, I mean, you could quite frankly, you might be able to trade Jackson Dart if you don't actually need him. So I'm kind of more inclined to roster Dart. From Ronaldo, giving CD and Travion for Amarion and Quentin. I'm okay with that. That's a lot of trust that we're putting into Quentin, but I talked about it. We're trusting it, and then you're upgrading massively at running back there with Amarion. So yes, from the Money Mark, thank you so much. You're trying to buy Devontae at his lowest, and you have Kenneth Walker, and the manager wants Sharp. So yeah, I'm fine with that. He's a good buy low. He is a very super buy low here. As long as you don't need him and you're just trying to offload Sharps, that makes sense. From award only, PPR. Theo or Waller at tight end, and then Kendre or Michael Carter at running back. I feel like I would take that chance of Michael Carter. If they run a true committee, I might lean that direction. I wish we would get some kind of snap count indication, but I don't think they're going to give it to us. But I do think that I lean potentially towards Michael Carter for at least a higher upside play. Kendre is definitely the more stable option, but I might take that risk with Michael Carter. And then between Theo and Waller, again, I do believe I would take that risk with Waller. So I'm telling you, like, the high risk options here of going with Waller over Theo. I've moved Waller up in my rankings. Snap count was not fantastic, right? But I do think that they're going to ramp it up here, especially with Tyreek Hill out. So, I think that's, fine to go ahead and take that leap on him over a guy like Theo Johnson for sure. And then from Ronaldo, is Brashard Smith a flex play? It depends on league size, for sure. It's a low end flex play, and I would say it's more of a deeper league option there. At the end of the day, they're still going to use all three running backs. Now, we feel positive about it because we see the progress in him moving forward, and we believe that he can take over that backfield, right? But for right now, we're not going to put him in flex here. We're going to, stick and hold here and wait to see how this shakes out and if he can bully someone out for sure. Awesome. And then one more question from Earl HU. PPR, start Waller or Fannin at tight end. I am going to take the risk of going with Waller over Fannin at tight end. I am. If Tyreek Hill hadn't gone down, I don't think I would go that direction. But the fact that they're going to need to get that extra boost in production makes me lean that direction. And then from Patrick, trade Woody, Keon Coleman for Kraft. You're 3-1. Your running backs are Gibbs, Warren, Scat, RJ, Woody, and Tuten. Oh, man. And then your wide receiver, CD, BTJ. Your tight end is Juwan. It feels hefty just because I love the upside of Woody. I personally would see if you could adjust it and make it Scataboo in Keon for Kraft, just because I do feel very positively that Woody ultimately has the higher upside. So if you can flip it to that, I think you've got the right move there in terms of that trade. My preference would just be to see if you can pass off Scattaboo instead of Woody Johnson, or Woody Johnson, Jesus, instead of Woody Marks. Yeah. All right. We're gonna call it a day here. I got some kids to get to bed. I appreciate you all tuning in. This was a fantastic crowd. Your questions were amazing. And thank you so much all for tuning in. Again, it is a podcast. So if you also want to support me by subscribing to the podcast, the Dare Miss Fantasy podcast, that would be wonderful. It's available on all platforms. And then a follow and subscribe as well for my YouTube channel at It's Terra Time. And of course, you can find me if you want to find me across all social media. It's the same handle everywhere. It's Terra Time, ITSTERATIME. But other than that, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for Player Profiler as well, who our podcast is through. So make sure that you are following Player Profiler as well. Other than that, if you have any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the YouTube comments of any of my videos, and I do my very best. I'm pretty good about getting to them. And other than that, good luck with your lineups. I will see you all again here next week. We go live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. EST. Got to do the math on that because I'm in central timing here. But thank you so much, guys. Again, I will talk to you all next week. Goodbye.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.